Well, hi, friends, and welcome to NC Family's weekly update for the week ending October 11th. I'm here with Sharon and Jerry. It is without a doubt hurricane season. It is amazing what has taken place over the last 2 weeks, especially in the southeastern United States. Our hearts do go out not only continually for those who have been victimized in many ways by Hurricane Helene, but also Hurricane Milton that just went across the middle of Florida just this past Wednesday. And so certainly a tremendous amount of focus on relief and recovery and then eventually rebuilding and restructuring from all of this. But it was a really important week here in North Carolina. The North Carolina General Assembly came back to Raleigh on Wednesday for the purpose of passing legislation that appropriated funds for emergency relief and recovery efforts. And so this was a bipartisan effort, which we were hopeful that it would be, that all members of the State House and all members of the State Senate would come together with the best interest of the citizens in mind, especially the 25 counties in the western part of the state that were so devastated by Hurricane Helene. So they passed a bill that appropriated $273 million as a start, the first step in helping provide funding for relief and recovery. A portion of that, $250 million of that, is a match for federal dollars that the state will receive. So they really took quick and decisive action to secure those funds and to create a process by which these resources are going to be able to get out to all of these counties that were so affected. And the individuals, of course, and families that were affected by the storm. Jerry and Sharon, y'all were down at the legislature on Wednesday talking to members. We heard just incredibly compelling testimonies about the experiences that lawmakers had and what they, kind of what they went through, but also what they experienced as they were trying to provide and coordinate relief and recovery efforts, whether in the middle of the worst hit sections or in some cases kind of outlying areas that were staging areas for efforts to help provide the rescue and recovery efforts. So Sharon, tell us a little bit about what you heard and some of the experiences that were shared by some of the members who were in the most hard-hit areas of the state.
Sure, I'd be happy to, and I know Jerry will share some too. It was a very interesting day, very different. They started with a press conference. Many members were in the room, and those that were from the most affected areas, generally speaking, the West and the mountain range, they were up there telling us stories about what had happened. And what was really just so awesome to hear and to see was just the focus on God and all that he has done in helping them and coordinating efforts. In fact, one of the senators, while addressing the members on the floor of the Senate during session, said, I have to first start with thanking God. And while we would love to hear that every day, that is not something that we do hear every day down there. So that was really just moving for me, and I know everybody else that was there and heard it. And there were conversations about the speed of the government coming in to help. And, they talked a little bit about that, but what they really wanted everyone to know is they are focused on you, the people. They want to make sure that they get everything up and functioning and try to rescue those that need to be rescued, make sure that people get food and water and shelter. And so they will come back around at some point to discuss the lessons that they've learned. But I would say that overall what we did here was just that the Christian community stepped up, really took leadership roles. One member even said that there were college kids that had never really had that kind of leadership opportunity, and they rose to the occasion. Yeah. So whether it was individuals, church groups, or organizations like Samaritan's Purse, really the Christians just came through and took care of their neighbor. And, in that, I would say that an example would be Samaritan's Purse. And this, of course, is their backyard. They're based in Boone, North Carolina. But they had 2,000 volunteers show up at one location to help. That's just astounding.
Yeah. Well, it's just an incredible experience like nobody who has gone through this has ever experienced before. And so it's certainly historic proportions of damage and all of that. But in the midst of that, the best of humanity
Exactly.
was on display. And I think that was one of the great things to hear, as you've shared, from legislator after legislator, as leaders in these communities, just being able to witness individuals, churches, relief agencies like Samaritan's Purse come together and just be boots on the ground, the hands and feet of Christ, and serving, and not only just cutting trees up or off of houses, those types of things, pulling people out of flooded rivers and things of that nature, but also just being there to lend encouragement, prayer, and it was just the best of humanity on display. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Jerry, what are some things that you heard?
Well, and I know we all shared a lot of stories from yesterday, whether they in the press conference, in the House, the Senate, and then in individual conversations. But what Sharon shared was from one chamber, and somebody beginning their remarks, this is somebody who's been very involved in not just representing that area, but helping with these efforts.
Mm-hmm.
In the other chamber, another member who's from an area that's been affected in a tremendous way, they led in prayer. And it was interesting and wonderful how they said the passage that God had put on their hearts was Romans 8:28. And this is exactly what we saw and heard yesterday. And, she went on to say before she prayed, and we know that God causes all things to work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. And she had earlier shared, but in later as well, the reality of what God is doing in the midst of devastation and tragedy. And that, just as Sharon, you said, the example with Samaritan's Purse, God had them here to help organize just what was it, one location where 2,000 people came to help. Another member and John referred to this, right outside of the affected area, ended up being part of helping to organize the help going into these affected areas. And he gave two of the examples he mentioned. It was like over 90 privately owned helicopters came, and for days, making hundreds of trips going into areas where there wasn't access from them for roads or anything. People who needed health care, didn't have it, needed to be taken out. They were taking supplies in, helping move people out. He gave another example of just because they were right outside, people were bringing supplies from around the state and go, where do we put all this? Who's going to organize this? And he and others helped organize a place for that to happen, contacted trucking people with trucks who could organize it and then get it out and deliver it. And he commented, this was, I guess, in a private, maybe we can't even remember. It's not that important how much was in private conversation or in what they shared on the floor. But he said it's clearly the work of God to bring all this together for all that was happening so quickly to try to respond. And again, this is obviously going to be an ongoing situation. And that was one thing that one of the members from one of the areas, he used the word, in our area, some areas were decimated. He pointed out in his town, he said, there's no grocery store there now. I mean, and all these things, it's going to be a long recovery process, but even in the immediate needs from what's happened already, all these people, what they shared, and I know we could go on and on. We tried to kind of say, well, what would be most helpful? But he was saying he's in an area, this is Western North Carolina. He said in the next week, temperature's supposed to drop in the 30s. We've got people who've lost their homes, people who are in homes with no electricity, no heat. He said, we need clothes, we need blankets. The needs are tremendous. But again, just hearing how people are responding. And one other note, this was another member who lives outside the area, was part of the relief efforts, going in, offering his services, equipment that he had, and just talking with him. And this is, again, a witness to what God is doing. He said, as believers with Christ in us, this is what we need to be doing.
That's right.
This is what he wants to do through us. And so share that as a reminder to all of us that this is what's going on right now, what will continue to go on. The Lord wants to work through each and every one of us to be part of meeting these needs and being a witness in the midst of all of it.
And there will be plenty of opportunities in the days, weeks, months, and years ahead.
Sure.
Sharon, I know you heard one very kind of eye-opening situation in one of these western counties that was so hard hit that just demonstrates how long this recovery process is going to be. Share that with us.
Yes, one of the senators representing the worst hit area was talking about their water treatment plant. It is not operable and it is not salvageable.
It's gone.
Gone.
Yeah.
And he said that in normal circumstances, it would take years. I can't remember if it was 2, 4, somewhere in there. I mean, a long time. And they're not even in good circumstances. So they can't really even get that working until they have roads and they have other infrastructure to be able to have tools and all of that kind of stuff in that area. So I would just ask that we all remember to not get crisis weary. It is going to be a very, very long time. Like you said, Jerry, I mean, people lost everything. So I'm sure there will be collections for winter coats and blankets and heaters and that kind of thing. And, if you're being asked 2 years from now, they probably really do still need it.
Yeah. So definitely something that we can and should keep in our prayers constantly, and then seeking opportunities where we can engage. One of the great things, not only has this incredible tragedy shown the best of humanity and people stepping up and stepping out, churches and, again, relief agencies and organizations, but also just seeing the humanity of these legislators, legislative leaders. Often we hear so much about the political bickering and the, kind of behind the scenes infighting and all that sort of stuff. But these lawmakers came together. This bill, which we, again, hoped would happen, passed unanimously in both chambers. But the testimonials that were given both by Republicans and Democrats about just this outpouring of care and effort was really remarkable. And I guess it shouldn't be surprising, but the work that these lawmakers do, not only as elected officials and politicians, but those who are uniquely positioned within their communities to be able to organize and orchestrate and coordinate things, this really put that on display as well. And so we're so grateful for these members of the legislature who, regardless of where they lived in the western part of the state or the farthest eastern part of the state, there were members that were, on the phone, in contact, or just picked up and went to help. And that's a wonderful thing to see. So just keep that in mind as you're considering the upcoming election and, the service that these elected officials really do give. That's one of the things that I do want to mention as part of this legislation that the General Assembly did also approve are modifications to some of our election laws. The concern is that people in these 25 counties that were hardest hit by Hurricane Helene are going to have an incredibly difficult time voting, and if there weren't some modifications made, then they may not be able to act on their civic responsibility and civic right to get out and vote. And so there were some, and we won't go into a lot of details about it, but some modifications to the election laws to accommodate people, especially in these 25 hardest hit counties, to give them every effort and provide them a path to vote. So that was an important provision in this law. Now, of course, we want to make sure that these modifications, temporary as they may be, are implemented properly. And so we'll be, of course, monitoring and watching that. But certainly those were important efforts that were made by the General Assembly to really want to protect the rights of individuals to vote in the upcoming election. And that election is taking place on November the 5th. Early voting actually starts next week, early in-person voting in North Carolina on October 17th. I do want to mention again that NC Family's voter guide website at ncfamilyvoter.com is up and active now. You can go there and actually access and print out a personalized voter guide for yourself. Just type in your name and address and it'll match you up with your specific congressional districts in your state house and state senate districts, and then it'll provide information from the candidates on all the statewide races in North Carolina. You may also have some local races and some other questions on your ballot. So we've provided information in the voter guide about how you can access the State Board of Elections website and actually print out a sample ballot, which will be essentially the ballot that you'll be voting on, but you can make sure that you've got all of those local races and other questions that are on the ballot covered. And one other thing that I do want to mention is that we still have a bunch of voter guides that are available for distribution around the state. You can order these in bulk in quantities of 100 or 1,000 or more, and we will be happy to ship those out to you free of charge so that you can make sure that your family, your members in your church and your community, civic groups, and other groups of people that you associate with are well informed before they go vote. So there'll be a link under the video where you can access the voter guide website and also the page, the order page to order voter guides in bulk. And we will get those out to you within just a matter of days after you place the order. So thank you all for your interest. We've had a great response so far, but we have a lot of voter guides left and want to get those out so they go to very good use for voters across the state. Jerry, you acted like you had something to say.
No, we didn't talk about this, but I can add this to the end. This is what's amazing is yesterday got a call from a lady in Western North Carolina. I've spoken to her in the past when she's called, and she gets a quantity of guides for us and drives around to churches in her area to distribute voter guides. And she called yesterday. She said, I feel like God's really put it on my heart to do this again. And I'm kind of going, I don't know, obviously the circumstances, what's around her, yet she said, I know every election's important, and I think God's really put it on my heart to do it again. Would y'all please send them to me? And I said, yeah,
that's great.
Definitely.
That's great.
So all that to say, it is something, and I like the way you point out, John, the members of the right now, the elected members of the legislature, we saw and have seen, but especially yesterday, how God's working in and through them and how important it is who we elect into office. And so it was just a neat story that this lady is going, I know it's important for people to be informed when they vote. So
well, and we certainly don't at all minimize or want to minimize the plight that many of our citizens are under. But this is just a demonstration of why elections and those who we elect into office are so important because of circumstances like this, and then also the policy proposals that they consider and vote for or vote against that impact the daily lives of citizens across the state. So these are clearly very unusual circumstances, but it's important that we act in our full extent as we're citizens and Christians in the culture to try to understand as best we can where these candidates stand on issues so that we can vote people into office who share our values, share our priorities, and those types of things. So, Sharon, anything else?
No, just remember, be praying for them. They will be coming back. The legislature will be coming back on October 24th, Thursday the 24th, I believe, to reevaluate where they are. They'll have more information on, where things stand. And so be in prayer for that. And of course, join us in praying for our communities out west.
Yeah, and also our friends down in Florida,
Sure.
On the heels of Hurricane Milton coming through there. It's just an incredible time of the year, an incredible season. Certainly lots of need, but again, lots of opportunity for folks, for people of faith to stand up and to act, to be salt and light, and by acting to glorify our Father in heaven and have other people see what it really means to be a follower of Jesus Christ. So we're excited to have the opportunity to do that in lots of different respects. And again, friends, this is going to be a long-term recovery process in North Carolina, so we're going to have lots of opportunities to display the love, mercy, grace, and truth of God in lots of different ways. So we look forward to walking through that with you as partners in this effort. So, as always, thank you for your continued prayers, for your support, for your action. And that's certainly something that we need right now, not only as the election comes up, but as there is great need across our land. So, friends, thank you. God bless you. And we look forward to chatting with you next week.